Welcome back to our Yoga Therapeutics mini course. I'm still Lizzie Lasater, and teaching us today is the wonderful Mary Richards. Hi, Mary.
Hi, Lizzie.
Today we're talking about bad knees, and the subtitle is Mind Your Meniscus. So, what is a bad knee? How do you define that, Mary?
Well, first of all, there's no such thing as a bad knee. As someone with um, needy knees, I just like to reframe that. But a lot of us have needy knees. We have arthritis. Maybe we've had ACL reconstruction. Maybe we haven't. But most commonly, a lot of us live with injury to some of the connective tissues within the knee called the meniscus. And we know we have problems with our knees when we experience pain with movement or just pain without movement. That it's always in our awareness, the knee is, right? And then we may notice that we have difficulty squatting down or even bringing our ankle up to our opposite thigh to put our socks and shoes on, whatever it is. Knees are a common joint of concern.
Okay, let's bring it into a yoga context. What are the yoga poses that are the most challenging, or some of them that come to mind when you think about someone who has a meniscus injury? Where would they start to feel it on the mat?
Okay, so uh, we'll talk in a little bit more depth here in a moment about what meniscus injury is, but they'll feel it in warrior poses, in warrior two, in warrior one, in, of course, Baddha Konasana, the seated bound ankle pose. You'll feel you can't ever escape
Get
your
away.
knee.
So, what will our students say? What's the type of thing we might hear from them where we might think, oh, meniscus?
My knee hurts. This hurts. I feel unstable. My knee is making a clicking sound. I get a click and then sharp pain.
Okay.
We
Okay, that makes
know,
a lot of sense.
yeah, we know then that odds are we are dealing with a meniscus issue because the hallmark symptoms of injury to meniscus, meaning tears, degradation, tissue degradation, is a feeling of like the knee could buckle. And then it's like when you bend your knee in particular, say you're going into warrior two, or you're going to sit in any seated pose where the knee is flexed, whether it's Janu Sirsasana, Baddha Vajrasana, whatever it is where there's knee flexion, you'll have sharp pain and it might feel like there's something caught in the knee.
Okay, flexion is bent for those of us who aren't as anatomically fluent. But if you would like to be more anatomically and kinesiologically fluent, keep your eyes out for a course which we're developing on Yoga Therapeutics, co-taught by Mom, Judith Hanson Lasater, and Mary Richards. Kira the dog, who's here with us today, may also make an appearance. She's so sweet back there. So, okay, but the if you want to stay in the loop about that course and also receive a free full-length yoga class in your inbox every single month to support your practice, then sign up on the link below. I also personally see every single comment on my YouTube channel. So let us know how this mini course landed with you, how this specific video landed with you, how your knees felt before and after. Mary's going to show us a little bit of anatomy now so we understand, because I always think the better I understand what's going on, the structure of the body, then the better I can connect it to the sensations. So we're going to look at a little bit of anatomy, and then Mary has three exercises for us on the mat what would you say the exercises are for, Mary, to support the knees?
To stabilize because knees aren't very stable joints. And I just want to take a moment, Lizzie, to highlight something that I heard you say, which is that you have a sense that when you learn more about the body, it empowers you to more quickly and accurately identify what it is you're feeling. That's actually like super true. Because the way our brains, bodies work, the super highway of connectivity, body to brain, brain to body, is we literally have a map in our brains of our bodies. And so the more we're able to connect our sensory organs and our organs of perception to movement and posture, then the more accurately we live in our skin. And I believe that that is empowering.
Absolutely. I will say, because I know he doesn't mind, my beloved partner has a bad back and he's Austrian. And so he says in German, like, oh, heute zwickt's in meine Rücken. Like today it's pinching in my back. And then when I ask, like, is it sacroiliac? Is it the left or the right side? Is it lumbar? Like, where exactly are you feeling this? Zwicken. And he's not a yoga person. He hasn't taken experiential anatomy. He has not taken our yoga therapeutics course. He doesn't really know. He doesn't have a connection between what he's feeling and a way to articulate that. And I'm so grateful to all the study with you, Mary, and with mom that when I have a zwick in my lower back, I have a sense that I have also a sense of like, okay, that's SI joint pain. It's not scary. It's not bad. I know some exercises I can do to help it. So it actually helps me feel more safe and comfortable in my body.
Yes. Yes. And isn't that one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves?
Yeah.
To be
Yeah.
feel
Okay.
safe where we live?
Absolutely. Okay, I'm turning on. Oops, that's not what I wanted. I'm going to share. This is Pocket Anatomy. I'm also going to include the link in the YouTube description. We work with them. They're now called Anatomists, but we have a referral link that you're welcome to use. And I love this app. It really helps you visualize and learn
Mhm.
more. So, Mary, what are we looking at here?
So we're looking at the knees at the bony level from the front. So I want us to look at the knee that is
This
bony,
one.
where Lizzie, you're working the cursor. Okay, so we can see on top the femur, the thigh bone, and that it rests on the shin bone, the tibia.
Yeah.
And the ends of the femur are convex, they're rounded knobs. There are two of them which you can see. And then there's like a groove between them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the shin bone, the tibia, and it's concave. It's like a well. And then the rounded heads of the femur, the thigh bone, sit in those depressions. Now, Lizzie, if you take your cursor and you trace that darker cream,
Here.
yes, you
Yeah.
are looking at the menisci. Okay, the meniscus, it's like a C-shaped cartilaginous ring, and it helps cushion the head of the shin bone as well as deepen the head of the shin bone, the top of the shin bone, so that there is a better fit between the thigh bone and the shin bone. So the menisci not only function as shock absorbers, if you will, cushioning these hard bones because they bounce against one another every time we take a step, okay? But they also improve the integrity, the stability of the joint itself. And what happens over time with the menisci, if you can see, right, that it's kind of sandwiched between these bones.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, imagine you're just going up and down stairs, you're walking your dog, you're squatting down to pick things up. There's a lot of use that occurs in that joint. And so it's very important that we have well-balanced muscles because it's the muscles that move bones, right? And
Right.
What happens in the knee, we take a look again. When you see this, do you notice that one side of the knee looks bigger than the other?
Ooh, I would say the inner knee looks bigger.
Boom. Yes, that's called the medial compartment. So there's a medial compartment and a lateral compartment. The medial compartment is the most functional aspect of the knee. Okay. That condyle, rounded knob at the end of the thigh bone, is bigger, and the receiving depression on the top of the shin bone is bigger and deeper, and that meniscus is bigger and deeper. Okay. And if we look at the opposite knee where you've got the connective tissue, more connective tissue laid over, you're starting to look at the joint capsule, you're starting to see some bursa. Um, Look how much thicker the connective tissue is on the inner knee.
Mm-hmm.
So just structurally, we know that the inner knee is functionally more important given its size and the shape of its various parts. And that tends to be where we will have pain. We certainly can have pain in the outer knee when you bend your knee, but typically it'll be on the inner knee.
Well, and you can also see structurally that the outer knee has this kind of column of support in some way from the second bone of the lower leg.
Well, yeah. So you're looking you see that long, skinny strut-like bone, the fibula that forms the outer ankle bone and then comes up right into the shin bone. So the fibula isn't actually like part of the knee per se, but what the fibula helps do is it helps translate force. We have ground reaction forces, like when we strike the earth, there are ripple forces that go up through from the foot through the knee into the hip. And the fibula, there's connective tissue. Lizzie, I don't know if you add a layer, if it'll lay in. Okay, sort of, you can see it. Maybe let's try turning it around a bit. A little more, keep turning. I'm looking for a good view of the interosseous membrane. Yeah, okay. You can kind of see, so you see the veins and the arteries. The artery is red, the vein is
Here.
blue, the yellow, those are nervous structures. And behind that, do you see kind of a grayish white behind those veins? Down between the fibula and the shin
Oh,
bone?
here. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, a little lower. Okay, so that's called an interosseous membrane. Inter between osseous bones membrane. We also have one in the forearm between the radius and the ulna. And what these tissues do is they help transfer force out of joints into the body. In the case of the leg, the shin bone and the fibula, the strut, it's moving force from the foot and ankle out of the knee, through the knee, get it through the knee into the pelvis.
Okay, last question before we move to the mat. Um, how does the meniscus get injured? Are we talking about is it torn? Is it just worn thin? What is going on in there?
Okay, if we pull up the image one more time. Okay, so here I was talking about interosseous membrane. So when we have poor force and load transfer from hip to foot, it all goes into the knee.
Hmm.
Okay, and it hits the meniscus. Because we think of the meniscus as what?
Squishy.
Shock absorption.
Shock absorbent. Yeah.
Shock absorption. So if we have functional imbalances or we've had an injury, we're not going to have great force transfer, and then that can get stuck in the knee because the knee is like Arjuna, it doesn't want to fight. It's a warrior, but it doesn't want to fight. And yet it's some folks describe it as it's a prisoner of the ankle and the hip. Okay. So what happens when we have poor force and load transfer? Maybe we have weak glutes.
This is Mary's biggest pet peeve if you haven't studied with her before. Everything secretly becomes a core exercise Or surprise, you're training your glutes.
Saying. Stand by my biases in this regard.
Exactly. So if we have weak glutes, you're saying that contributes to
Yeah.
meniscus
So if
strain?
we have weak glutes, you have tight, weak quads, imbalanced quads, weak hamstrings, tight calf muscles, because your calves work with your hamstrings and your glutes to, uh, you know, move your knee. When you have these imbalances, your meniscus is going to pay the price, and what will happen is it'll tear.
Mm.
Okay. And it can tear so much that you'll get a flap of loose tissue. And then every time you bend and straighten your knee, you get sharp, immediate pain because you've trapped that torn tissue. Okay.
Got
And
it.
then what happens? Maybe you've made it through the initial stab of pain and you're sitting, maybe let's say you're watching a movie or something, but then you go to stand up and it's really painful. It can be excruciating. And that's because now blood is rushing into those tissues and they don't have the resilience to respond quickly to the change in joint position. And so you'll have pain.
Mm.
Okay. But there's a lot of stuff we can do. Okay.
Yes, that is a perfect transition. Shall we move to the mat? Anything you want to say before we get on the mat?
Okay. So we're going to do three things, and these are great for torn meniscus. I wanted to say you may be told you need to have arthroscopic meniscus repair. Okay. So what they'll do is they'll take these scopes, arthroscopy, arthro joint scope. They're scoping into the knee and they may go in and trim the torn flap of meniscus. There may be debris in the joint and they debridement. They clean it up. They try to smooth it out. Okay, so that's an option. It's a good idea if you're experiencing acute and or chronic knee pain, please go have it checked. Go, ideally go to an orthopedist with a sports medicine focus because they are, in my experience, more attuned to the loads that we experience on a yoga mat. Okay. And so get it checked, please. But know that there are things that you can do on your own. You don't necessarily have to have a meniscus intervention if you're able through therapeutic exercise to maintain your quality of life. That's the key. We want to maintain quality of life. And there are three principles in my experience as someone with a very, very, very long history of knee situations that we need to focus on. First, we got to train the gluteus maximus. It just is what it is
Surprise, you're training your glutes.
because that's going to save your knee. Because see,
Yes.
it's more than squats and hand and leg curls and stuff. It's so much more than that. We got to actually target the gluteus maximus. Then we need to actually rebalance our quadriceps so that we have really good tracking in the knee. Because if the kneecap, the patella, is not sliding and gliding well in that groove at the end of the thigh bone, your meniscus is going to pay the price.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. And then we want to find relief by encouraging mobility. And we're going to use the law of concave convex motion to do that because you've heard me say in the past, I hope, and if not, welcome to the law of concave convex motion party, that to encourage normal and maximal movement within a joint, we want to move the concavity over and around the rounded convexity of a joint. So that means what in the knee? Where is the concavity in the knee, Lizzie?
Okay, I would think that's the femur. I want to move my femur over my tibia.
Exact opposite.
Ah,
But that's okay. This is great. This is great. Because see,
keep
this is the
going.
way. No, this is great because this is the way a lot of movement occurs.
Hmm.
Okay, it's similar to the shoulder, which we talk about in another video, where we're usually moving the convex, the rounded head of the arm bone against that shallow depression on the outer border of your shoulder blade. Okay. And that's how we get more wear and tear because we're moving the convexity against the
Hmm.
concavity. So there's more friction. Okay. And this often happens in the knee, especially um, when we're going down.
Hmm.
Okay. But you'll see this a lot because a lot of us have been taught to walk straight. So we don't move our hips when we walk. We kind of march from our knees. And that's where we're moving the convex end of the thigh bone, the femur, against the depressions in the shin bone. So we want to improve that slide and glide and develop the muscle patterns that improve slide and glide.
Okay.
Okay.
So good. Let me pin myself so I stay big, and I'll go back to the mat. Mary has suggested for these exercises that we may want a strap, which I have nearby, and I also have a little exercise ball. I'll include the link, the ones we like below this video as well.
Yeah. And I just want to say sometimes it's difficult for folks with knee situations, especially meniscus injury, because meniscus injury, oh my goodness, it's when you start bending the knee, it's like at the start and the end of the range. And that's why it hurts when you first bend the knee and why it hurts when you straighten it, right?
Right.
Because it's in those end areas of the arc of movement. So you may have difficulty getting down on the floor. Guess what? You can do this in your bed.
Okay.
Okay. So I just want to point that out that there are no excuses.
But the good news is we get to start lying down.
Yeah, it can't be that difficult, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so we're going to come into a comfortable supine position, knees bent comfortably for you, feet are about hip width apart, arms resting naturally by the sides of the body. And now I want you to press down firmly into your feet and into your shoulder blades. And as you exhale, I'd like you to press down firmly in your feet. Exhale, exhale, push down, and inhale, float the hips up. Yeah. And then exhale and lower. So let's just start with this bridge pose with the hip lift. I like to inhale up because I'm floating up and my belly is open. And then I like to exhale down. But some folks need the oomph of the exhalation to lift their hips. So please feel free to reverse the breath
No,
tied
I'm
to
just
your experience of it.
No, I'm just playing with the breath. But that's what I love about doing this work with Mary, also in our Somatic Strength course and Somatic Self Care, which is a monthly live class. Everything is from the breath, which I think is so, I mean, we're doing strength training right now, but
Yeah, we are.
it's so sneaky for yoga people in the best way because, first of all, I'm on my mat and I'm not at a gym, and I'm also using the breath, which is so familiar.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't even notice that you're working your gluteus maximus.
No.
Yeah. But let's make sure you do. So the next so the next time you come up, now I want you to lift your toes off the mat. So the forefoot is off the mat and you now lift with your toes up.
This is harder.
I love it. And now, do you notice though with your toes lifted, first of all, of course, you feel the work in the front of your shins, yeah?
Yeah.
And where else do you notice work sensation?
I'm actually feeling it in my hamstrings on the back of my
Yeah.
thighs.
Yes, excellent. See, we do a lot in yoga to stretch hamstrings, right? But we don't do a lot to really strengthen them. And a very common issue relating to meniscus problems and just knees in general is our big, beefy quads tend to overpower our long, skinny hamstrings. Hamstrings typically are weaker than quads. First of all, they're outnumbered. Second of all, they're smaller tissues. Third,
Hmm.
we tend to be biased toward front body training because we can't see the back. We focus on
Right.
what we can see, right? So this is great because you can really feel the hamstrings. Now I want you just do, 8 or 10 of these. I don't want you to do 50. I want you to focus on feeling. So that means we slow down and we notice where things are happening in the body because that's how we learn who's not showing up to the movement party. And by directing our attention, we can then invite those parts into the room with us. It's the first step. Okay. So now let's change this. Let's lift the heels. Lift the heels. So now you're on the balls of the feet. And now I want you to lift your hips.
So I'm really surprised that you would teach this. I had the idea or the prejudice that this is like bad for my knees somehow, that this would be overloading. Because I just was in a Pilates class and she was trying to get us to do these squats with lifted heels. And I didn't do it. I kept my heels down because I thought, oh, this seems like this is too much stress on the knee.
Yeah, if you're standing, but
Okay.
you're gravity neutral.
Okay.
If you've got a knee situation, you shouldn't, in my opinion, in my experience, again, I've had 5 rounds of knee surgery. My knees have been presented at orthopedic conferences. I've had, you know, outlier procedures done, and I would never do this if I were in pain. But you feel a difference now. What do you notice?
Yeah, I don't feel any pain. It's almost like I feel like I'm wearing high heels
Yeah,
and it feels more quads.
yeah,
The front, I'm feeling more front thigh work
yeah.
and more calf work, definitely.
Boom. And but see, this is the thing about therapeutics is we have to think about gravity. Well, we need to think about gravity all the time, in my opinion. But in terms of therapeutics, we remove gravity to the extent that we're able. We start low and
Hmm.
slow. Yeah.
Okay, I'm seeing some of my rascal behavior out there, which is distracting me. So my twin boys are in the garden. Okay, I think that's enough of those. What should we
Okay.
do next?
Okay, so now, so you felt that, right? You felt that in
Yeah.
the glutes, the hamstrings, the quads, the calves. That was a pretty big movement. Now I want you to pick a knee that tends to be testier,
Okay.
okay? And you're going to straighten that leg out on the floor and really externally rotate the leg. Okay, so turn your foot out like you're a duck. All right, now keep your body relaxed, your bent leg stable. And now, as you exhale, I want you to pull your straight leg up to the height of the other thigh and pull the leg down. Now, the entire time you're pushing out through the heel, like you're standing on your foot. And I really want you pull up like you're pulling up through wet cement and pull down.
So what is the pulling down? Because my instinct is just to let gravity lower the leg itself.
Of course it is. But see, we actually need to put the brakes on when we're moving down with gravity because that is going to help shape movement. It's going to help us better translate force.
So is this an eccentric contraction when I'm lowering?
Yes. So we
Okay.
do concentric contraction when we rise, when we flex the hip, and eccentric when we move to 0 degrees in the hip. And where do you feel the work, Lizzie?
I feel it all along the inner thigh.
Yes, exactly. So we have an anatomical predisposition to imbalanced quadriceps. So we have 4 quads. quadricep. Okay. And the biggest one is something called the vastus lateralis. Okay. And it's on the outer thigh. Big,
It's
beefy
here.
quad. Yeah, it really wraps around the front and side of the thigh. And then we have the vastus intermedius, which is close to the bone, the long, skinny, relatively
Can I
long.
switch sides?
Yeah, please switch
Okay.
sides. I want you to go to
Okay.
fatigue though. And then we have what's called the vastus medialis, and that's what we're training now. We're training the innermost, the medial most head of the quads, which is responsible for patellar tracking, for keeping your kneecap in the groove at the end of the thigh bone. And this helps protect the meniscus because the more efficiently your kneecap tracks, the more efficiently we spread force exertion through the joint. You with me?
So we have a lot of yoga teachers I know who are watching this. Do you recommend to just include movements like this in your asana class? Is that what you do, Mary?
Oh, heavens, yes. What we're these series, these two poses that we're doing now, if I'm teaching a warrior pose series or trikonasana series, a triangle pose series, I start with these. You have to prime the pump.
Okay.
And for knee folks in particular, straight leg asana is going to help them with bent leg asana. You want to stabilize your knees, do straight leg work.
Okay.
And then it'll be much easier to do warrior two. Okay, so you feel we worked the muscles that tend to be related to our sort of orthopedic stack, how our bones line up in relationship with one another. But now we want to find some relief. Like right now, how do your knees feel, Lizzie? If you just notice them bent, and then if you want, straighten your legs out in Shavasana position.
They're pretty quiet. I luckily don't have grumpy knees, so they're pretty quiet right now, but I did feel that inner thigh work was really good for me, and I did get to fatigue.
Awesome. That's what we want. And most of us need that medial work, especially
Mhm.
those of us with ovaries and those of us with a longer or wider transverse axis, AXIS of the hips, it and narrower knees. Okay, so if you're
Mhm.
knock kneed,
Mhm.
okay, meaning your knees are in narrower than
And
your
your
hip
pelvis.
sockets. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, these movements we're doing are your friend, especially that straight leg lift. But now we want to find some relief. So now you can start with your strap if you'd like. And we're going to take the strap and we're going to place it behind one thigh, your crankier leg, for instance. You're going to place it on the back of the thigh, close to the back of the knee, but not in the pocket of the knee. And then you're going to bend the knee, let it rest. Just let the leg be heavy and drag that thigh in towards your chest. And then I want you to just gently bounce the leg, the foot and
Oh,
leg.
pop, pop, pop.
Hmm. Just spreading that synovial fluid around. Synovial fluid is like the WD-40 or lubricating oil of your joints, especially of your knees.
You
And so
know,
now
it happened.
you feel, Lizzie, so we're moving the leg, right? You're moving the shin bone, you're
Yeah.
moving the concavity
Hmm.
over and around the convexity, and this creates relief.
Hmm.
And now, if so, this is a great way to start. Now, Lizzie doesn't typically have knee situations. She's got a really straight Q ankle, meaning she's not bow-legged or knock-kneed. So you can see you probably feel great with the strap.
Yeah.
Let's say though you have active meniscus pain, you know you have osteoarthritis, you know you have meniscus tear, you need something fatter. And that's where the ball comes in.
Okay.
So we take the ball and we place that in the back pocket of the knee.
Yeah.
You'll find the spot where it fits.
Hmm.
And now, little bounce, little bounce.
Oh,
Feel the difference?
yeah.
Which do you like better, Lizzie, strap or ball?
Um, this almost feels, this is really getting my calf. It's like massaging the very top of my calf in a nice way,
Yeah,
but it's
I'm a ball
intense.
person. Now,
Yeah.
listen, my friends who have difficulty with the flexion and you have pain when you straighten your knee, use a bigger ball
Hmm.
or use a rolled up towel. You can
Hmm.
you can reduce the intensity. You can make this more accessible for yourself by changing the size of your prop. When you're ready, change legs, Lizzie. Now, I do this. As you know, I'm a big hiker. And
Hmm.
I do this after every hike. Heck, I do this after walking Kira here.
Okay, I really, yes, but Mary's walks are epically long.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not a 15-minute round the block that Mary's doing.
No, yeah, I do a lot of mileage every day.
This
But
feels really good. The place where I'm feeling a sensation that feels healthy but intense is the real top of these calf
Mhm.
muscles.
Yeah, and then if you do this and say you do some sort of calf stretch, whether it's the sort of runner's lunge at the wall or you do downward facing dog, it'll be revelatory.
Wow, this is awesome, Mary.
These three things, and like I will often, honestly, I do these. Well, I'm a big glute person, as we know. I do glute training pretty much every day, and I do VMO training, the vastus medialis obliquus training, a couple times a week. More if my
Hmm.
knees are cranky because I've not been sensible, and I do that ball mobilization all the time.
Okay, I'm going to just take a few steps around. Wow. Wow.
Mhm.
Feels really spacious.
Yes, and that's the sensation that we lose, especially when we have that feeling of instability or buckling. You're just like, oh, I just wish someone would like pull my thigh bone and my shin bone apart to create space for me because see, the meniscus have lost height. You can think of them, if you will, like intervertebral discs. In fact, they have a very similar I get so excited. They have a very similar tissue structure to an intervertebral disc and a very similar function in the body.
Yeah.
And so doing these little things don't take much time, but they add up. They have a cumulative therapeutic effect that I think is really beneficial.
Absolutely. Okay, I loved this, Mary. So, if you're watching this, comment below, how did your knees feel in a single word before you did these three exercises? Like sluggish, painful, congested, and then how did they feel in another word after? How do you feel? Mine feel really spacious now, I would say. Mary Richards, first of all, thank you
My pleasure.
for teaching us not just information, but you have such a lightness about how you share this work and your enthusiasm for, let's be honest, a pretty dry material. You just make it so fun because your enthusiasm is really infectious. Tell us where we can find you on the internet.
Thank you so much. You can find me at yogawithmaryrichards.com, Instagram, etc.
Okay. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Please like this video. Please check all the links below and make sure you sign up for our new moon mail so that you will receive all of the early bird information for our Yoga Therapeutics course. Inhale, open the palms away from the body with an exhalation. Bring them together in front of your heart. Thank you so much. Namaste. Thank you for joining us for this mini course. We'll see you next time.